So Andrea is the engagement lead at the Community Energy Association. She's a public and stakeholder engagement expert specializing in climate action, community sustainability, and systems change. Since 2005, Andrea has worked in the academic, nonprofit, and private sector to advance climate and community sustainability goals for local governments. Her work focuses on dialogue, collaboration, and networks to drive progress on equitable, resilient, and low-carbon communities. So Andrea, I'll pass it to you, and if you want to share your slides, please go ahead.
Yeah, great. Okay, let me get this set up. Can you see my screen?
I cannot.
Oh, interesting. Okay, just a second here. Okay, there we go. I missed a step, I think. How's that?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, great. Yeah, so thank you for welcoming me. This is my team. I work at CEA, and most of us are located in BC, but we also have a couple folks in the Yukon. We have someone in the Yukon. We have a couple of people in Alberta. So we're kind of like expanding some people on the island, northern BC. Yeah, and we do all sorts of work, primarily for local and regional governments on various areas of climate action. So just going to quickly go through some of what we do so you have a better idea of our work, and some of you may have worked with us before. So we do planning and research, we do climate action plans, we do modeling for all sorts of communities, corporate climate plans. We also do a lot of capacity and leadership development. We run peer networks, which brings groups of staff, elected officials, sometimes people from the private, public sector, or other nonprofits together to just learn from each other and share struggles and challenges and copy each other's work. We also work on reconciliation and relationships. So some of you may have worked with some of our team members that lead that work, Gaetan Kerrigan, Laura Cooper, or Pat Bell. So we support various initiatives on climate and Indigenous work. We also work on transportation. So we do low carbon transportation plans. We do EV charging networks, support regions with charging networks. And we have a team that works on the built environment. So a lot of work probably related to some of the energy efficiency work in terms of retrofits, energy efficiency in homes, both new homes and existing homes for retrofits. So just going to do a really general overview. Our work is generally guided by the International Association for Public Participation, and they're a global organization that has sort of standards of best practices and values for engagement and advancing public engagement. You might recognize this. This is one of their probably most commonly used theories or tools. And it is the spectrum of public engagement. So it's designed to assist public engagement folks and facilitators with the selection of the level of participation for the public's role. So in theory, the higher the impact of a decision on people's lives, the more input the public should have. So you'll see here on the left side is just informed. This is really almost communications. Like, we're going to let you know what we're doing. So it's a very shallow level of public engagement. An example of that would be if a local government needs to update a sewage pipe on a residential street. We'll just let you know about that. They'll just let you know about that, probably send you a flyer. They're not going to ask you to like collaboratively design it. And so, yeah, the level intensifies as you go up the spectrum. along the spectrum. And I would say more and more work now is becoming collaborative as we realize that, the concentration of power and how we can do more equitable engagement and really bring people in a more collaborative way. So on the far right-hand side would be empower, which is handing your participants the pen and saying, we're going to implement what you decide. So this type of engagement is less common. I guess an example would be maybe Brexit, referendum or something like that. Yeah, and one thing to mention that the spectrum helps guide the transparency and follow through on the commitment to the public. So when you tell the public that, we're going to ask you for input, we're going to ask you to collaboratively design this policy or this plan with us, and then sometimes, an organization or a local government doesn't follow through on that commitment, it can really break trust, right? So this is a way to say, let the public know what's going on with their input. If their input isn't going to be have very much influence, just be honest about that. So yeah, it's a good guideline in that way. There's just another kind of way of sort of seeing the spectrum, and you can see how it gets more collaborative as it goes along. I was just quickly going to run through some of the different types of techniques because it can also help you choose which techniques you might want to use. So for inform, maybe a website, blog post, or an article. For consult, a survey or an open house. Then involve, so you're getting a bit more feedback back. You might have a workshop or be engaging in conversations at a community kiosk. For collaborate, this is where, your participants are really digging into co-designing policies and solutions. So that might be an advisory committee or a working group. And there's a couple examples of empower, so a citizen jury, where they're actually sort of weighing in and voting on the policies, or a ballot process. So now I'm going to, sorry, I'm just going to minimize this other screen for a second here. How can I do that? Sorry. Yeah, so now I'm going to talk about some of our projects. So examples of some of CEA's projects, and specifically the ones that focus on energy efficiency. And then within the projects, I'll point out some of the engagement approaches and techniques that we've used that have been useful or successful, and some that are not so successful. So this is a project that we're doing on building retrofits called Retrofit Assist. So one thing, the feedback we got and that our team noticed and partners across the province noticed was that it's really difficult for homeowners to go through the retrofit process on their own. And they realized that part of the reason people weren't choosing to do retrofits or apply for funding is because it's confusing and it's complex, and then you have to find contractors that can do it, and yeah, there were all these different barriers. So we co-created with some of our partners this program, Retrofit Assist, and it guides homeowners through the process. So we have it in 3 communities, Roslyn, Squamish, and Whistler right now, and hopefully bringing more communities on soon. So yeah, helps people make a plan, connects them with resources, helps them understand financing, helps them, get as much money they can as possible back on rebates. It's kind of like hand holding, holding their hand all the way through the process. So I think there was one question that was, what are some strategies that can be used to educate residents about energy efficiency during the community engagement process? So one thing our team has found that it's much more effective when we don't focus as much on GHG reductions or energy use, but we center our messaging on what you might have heard this term co-benefits. So things that really impact people's lives and things that they really care about, like comfort, living in a warm and comfortable home that, is that has good air quality, isn't being impacted from wildfire smoke, is, you get, so it's healthier, it's, has more cost savings. So you'll see on this one, this is one page off the website, they're really leading with that messaging. Get into your comfort zone. They're leading with comfort, not like climate action. Yeah, so there's another message. Make your home more comfortable year round and reduce your energy bill, because as we all know, most people care more about those immediate things in their daily lives. So yeah, making communication materials simple and easy to understand is helpful. Um, I really like this one that someone, I think this was Gaytan on our team, who I think has presented to this group before, for some of you, came up with this image, because so many people, think they need to, oh, I want to get a heat pump, right? I want to jump to a heat pump. And then as energy efficiency professionals, they're saying, well, wait a minute, like, you got to focus on the building envelope, and, you don't want to get a heat pump if it's all going to blow out, if you have cracks around your windows and there's air getting in all these different places. So I just love this, that she said energy retrofit is like wrapping your house in a warm protective blanket. So that was one of my most favorite messages for energy efficiency. And it really kind of helps people understand, like, oh yeah, that protective shell is the first step. So for retrofit assist, some of the channels that we used, this is a bigger project, so obviously you're not gonna unless you're doing a bigger program, you're not gonna have this many different channels. But they did 1,300 postcard mailouts. They did social media posts, had articles in local digital print papers. They put up posters at local businesses. And then the city of Roslyn, they put it out through their website and their channels. So they try to kind of, get as many channels as you can, since all of us consume media and, through all these different channels. Not all of us are online and not all of us are reading newspapers. But I think, what's probably more important, what this team did, is they went out to create relationships with the community organizations before they finished the program design. So they went to find out what the community needs were, what the members' needs were. So they went out and did presentations and had talks with organizations like the Age Friendly Roslyn, the Affordable Housing Society, building associations. And then those organizations kind of became channels for the message for the people that they're meeting with, to say, oh, well, did you know, is your home moldy or cold? You can, why don't you try this retrofit program? So yeah, we really try to focus on more and more on, the fact that creating opportunities for people to come together and have conversations and learn from each other directly is probably the best way to engage. So even though it's not always possible. So this is a buildings tour that we've done in various communities. Our built environment team usually runs these. So yeah, they bring community members, but also contractors and others together in various homes in a community to show people what energy efficient homes are like. Also, I think they'll bring people into homes that aren't so energy efficient to show where those different upgrades need to happen. And one community member that we heard from, I thought he had a great point, because he was showing his home as part of this tour. And he said, all my neighbors are getting heat pumps now because I've just told them how many thousands of dollars I'm saving on my bill. So that one comment, because this guy was so passionate about how much money he saved, probably got so many more people on board, than any flyer or, newspaper article could. So Yeah, so again, really getting out into the community. This event was for building contractor capacity, because as some of you might have noticed that a lot of communities, people might want retrofits, but you don't have those knowledgeable builders and contractors that can do it. So, you know, our team's trying to build capacity of the service organizations too. So yeah, so they got it in the community, but they had food, they had a barbecue um for contractors and builders. And then they did it in front of Home Depot. So even though the contractors were like their primary audience for this event, you know, there were lots of community members coming back and forth out of Home Depot and stopping in and what's going on here and learning in the community about home retrofits. What else on this slide? Oh, and just partnering with other organizations, you know. Yeah, we partnered with other organizations and different groups brought different booths with whatever they were working on. So it makes it a bit more interesting. So again, going to where people are, going to existing community events. This is something that our team is doing more and more. Instead of like running an open house, okay, this is an open house on retrofits. We'll say, okay, where's like a big cross section of the community or the audiences that we want to reach, and we'll go there. And so this was run by a manager in our reconciliations and relationship team, Gaetan Kerrigan, who I think presented at this in this forum before. So she went to Hobie, I'm sorry if I'm like not saying that correctly, in Nisga'a Nation, and she was engaging the community on retrofits. So, you know, her and her team at Nisga'a had this booth, and they're having conversations and building relationships. And I think another thing to point out here, because sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but how many times have you walked past a booth at a community event and you think, I probably should go talk to those people, but I'm going to go for a hot dog or something instead? And so one thing we've realized is it's a good idea or important to have like engaging activities at the event that, and then that can serve as a jumping off point for conversation. So you'll see in this picture on the left here, they had win an e-bike, right? That, you know, brings people in like, oh, yeah, I want to win an e-bike. Or they also had this home energy retrofit bingo, which Gaetan developed with that team to teach people about the different terminology. So you can see it here. So while they were listening to the presentations that day on home energy and retrofits, they could find the different terms and read a bit more about what Nisga's doing. And then they bring it back. And if they filled it out, they got a $20 gift card. And so, yeah, it educates and serves as kind of a jumping off point. So, and I think too, when you can, and when an organization can, if you can give a really good prize, but the $20 Starbucks gift certificate is not a good example, because I mean, $20 was great, but if you can get a really good prize, we're noticing it's really boosting engagement, because it's a nice thank you to people. Like, thank you for taking the time to do this survey in your busy life. So yeah, here's, I think this was in a Kiskinuk, and this was another time they gave away an e-bike. And yeah, some of our projects will give away like a $500 Visa or an iPad, or, you know, so it's a nice gift and a nice thank you. And, you know, so for people that get a survey in their mailbox or their inbox, they might be more likely to think, actually, I'm not going to set this aside and come back to it later. I'm going to fill this out right now. So this is another example of going to an existing event. This was a retrofit program we were doing for a municipality. And I noticed there was a question about seniors. So this was a seniors lunch that they would have once a month in this community. And so one of our staff members went to present on the retrofit program that was being designed and to gather input on the barriers. And it was great because the seniors had so many good points that even with all of the rebates and funding, they still, a lot of them, you know, on a retiree's income, they can't afford retrofits. Some of them, a lot of them live in apartments, so they live in strata housing and they don't, you know, there's certain regulations, they can't get retrofits. So it was good because, you know, we were able to speak to them where they were at the end of their event. One thing I would say about this is that it takes, like, give yourself a lot of lead time to reach out and schedule, because that was one issue. Like the municipalities, like, we want to go really fast, and we're like, to jump onto people's events that they already have planned, like, it just takes time to, you know, find these groups and say, you know, this is why we would like to come and talk to your group. Um and also another challenge on this project was that there was very little budget for equitable engagement. So they had identified some key groups to try to make, you know, their engagement more equitable and affordable, or their program more affordable. So they had identified seniors and lower income renters. Um, but there was very little budget to do it on. And, you know, it's so much about relationships that it was really difficult to do it justice. This is, I think Gaetan talked about this in her previous presentation. This is the Northwest Energy Retrofit Forum that our team held in Nisga'a Nation and Terrace. I think there was a question that came in from someone: how can we foster local champions that can help lead engagement? So I thought this was a good example of that a lot of our work is really focused on, yeah, building that capacity and that learning between everyone within the ecosystem. So this was builders and subtrades, suppliers, building officials, government staff, energy advisors, community leaders. So you could kind of see, like, it's like systems change, right? Getting everybody, you know, everybody's coming from a different perspective. So how do you get everybody on board together? Yeah, so they had a site, they did site visits. They visited both an older home that was really not energy efficient and a newer energy efficient home. And one thing that came up that I thought was interesting, they were telling the group about that blanket analogy, that the blanket is a protective layer around the house. And someone said, well, in our community, in our culture, the blankets are an intergenerational asset. And so, you know, they had this conversation about what if we can shift to the point where our homes are an intergenerational asset. And so, yeah, there was a lot of, like, interesting conversation that happened. And then they had a variety of ways that they were engaging and learning from each other, because everybody learns differently, right? Like, some people like a presentation, some people, you know, learn through conversation, other people learn from, you know, hands-on kind of learning. So they had people, you know, doing window sealing, some people who would be familiar with that and others who weren't. So it gave them kind of a good idea of that. Yeah, so now I'm going to move on to the last section, which is just kind of talk about community engagement training and resources. I think there was a question from one person around, you know, where could I get some if I wanted to get some training on facilitation or something like that. So I'll highlight a few things. This is SFU, so this is all online. I think most of them are online, if not all. Yeah, they have a certificate of engagement, and you don't have to get the certificate. You can just take the individual courses. So they have, like, effective group facilitation, and they have strategies and tools for online engagement, various courses. You can go take a look. And I also looked at like UVic, UBC, Vancouver Community College. A lot of them have similar type programs that you can take. And then if you want, because I think some of them actually seemed a bit expensive, like $600 or $700 for a facilitator training, which I thought was kind of high. But there's also lots of smaller courses you can take too, like if you go to the IAP2, the International Association of Public Participation, um, they have larger like certification programs you can take, or you can just take like one-off courses like this one. Someone else had asked about youth engagement. So this is run by City Hive in Vancouver, and it's they're like real experts in youth engagement and how to get youth involved in your projects. So that could be a good one. There's various things online. This is Training for Change, and they're a nonprofit. So they have a sliding scale to join some of their online classes, which I thought was nice. I might take one of those. And I'm going to send Erin a list of resources that that you can look at after the presentation or another day. And event participation. So if you don't want to have formal training or take a course, what I recommend is either volunteer at things or go to other organizations' events. So sometimes I will, if I see like, I live in, sorry, I forgot to say I live in Tsleil-Waututh territory in North Burnaby. And if the city of Burnaby is like having like, they had a big ideas fair for their OCP or something like that, I'll go to it because it's almost the best way, because as a participant, you can really see how things are landing with you and see how they feel. Like sometimes, if you go, not at this event, but if you go in a breakout group, say, and someone asks you like 10 questions and they give you like 5 minutes to answer them, and you're like, that's not going to work. Like, so you can really kind of learn a lot through just going as a participant. This one on the left was a SFU Center for Dialogue hosted event. They have a lot of really interesting events that are usually free, that they host online. So I would recommend checking them out. And then there's lots of different online resources too by people that are consultants or facilitation engagement people. So this Chris Corrigan, he has kindly put together a whole list of resources. So sometimes if I'm like, I want something more interesting or different or try something different, I'll go and look through some of these different activities and, just try them out. And so I have a few different things listed for you there. So I'm going to do a little bit of an exercise to show you a digital engagement tool.
Hey, Andrea, sorry, I don't want to
Yeah.
interrupt. I just
No,
think
go ahead.
we might want to skip ahead. We have about just over half an hour, so I think if we wanted to do enough Q&A, we might want to skip the Menti demo. Folks, if you are interested in learning more about these tools, definitely let me know and we can maybe do another session, because I think they can often get a little bit chaotic trying to figure out the tech. So
Yeah,
anyway,
that's a good
is that
point.
okay?
Yeah, that's a good point for sure. Yeah. I could
So
definitely,
anyway,
and
I'll
someone,
just let you kind of wrap up then without the tools.
yeah, no problem. And this is actually the last slide because I would have to switch to Menti. I'm just gonna, what am I gonna do here? Let me see if you can still see my screen if I take this down. Can you still see my screen moving around here?
Yep.
There's the Menti. You can see, I'll just show it, like people can, you can ask people different, yeah, you got polls and online questions and things like that. And this is the last thing I'll show you, which is, this is a digital engagement expert, and she has put together this free list of all these different tools, like depending on what you want to do. So yeah, I'm going to share this in that list of resources too. So yeah, she's so nice that she did that, and she just shares it freely publicly with anyone. So yeah, it's the ultimate list of engagement tools, digital engagement tools.